You should go live. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a special edition of the Rundown. We said that there was going to be no more, but there is more. There's this one, all right? Don't shout at me. It is the start of the NWFL season on Saturday. And to sort of bring it in, we have Bethany Pilkington of the Leeds Chargers, not the Wembley Stallions, like I said the other day. All right, it was busy, all right? It was busy. Of the Leeds Chargers, so say hello while you're on this side.
Hi.
There you go. Yeah, I should probably stop calling you Bethany because it's all a bit official.
Very formal.
See, there you go. Very formal. Miss Pilkington, Miss GB. So, the Eco Sound Posse. You talk about. I mean, if you haven't read the article, don't read it now. Watch it after. Read it afterwards, for God's sake. Yeah. What are you doing? What are you doing? Don't read it now. So, we're just going to be going over the NWFL season. It's kicking off, and you know what? It's really interesting. What are you talking about? You don't know about it, people who might be watching. It's interesting. All right, it's really interesting. We're going to talk about it. We've had some good interviews this week. We had one with Lou Robbins of Portsmouth on Monday, Rachel Moody of the Edinburgh Wolves on Tuesday. Wednesday was Georgia Teague of the Wembley Stallions, not the... See, that's why I got it wrong. And I will say, unfortunately, there won't be one tomorrow. I will put out some NWFL content, but unfortunately, the person they didn't cancel; they were just conflict. So we are going to get into it. As the first abrupt question that I asked in the article: who are you, and how long have you been playing the sport?
I am official name Bethany Pilkington, but everyone calls me Pilks. I play for the Leeds Chargers and Yorkshire Rams Team GB. Played for 7 years now. Couple out with injury. I'm sure everyone's been there, maybe not quite for a couple of years, but we got back to it now, so it's all fine.
So, and then this is the big one. So, unfortunately, I'm putting you in a position here to sort of promote the entire brand league as a whole. So, this is the big one. What are the differences between the Senior League or Uniball League and the NWFL?
So the biggest difference on the field is the people. So in the women's, we play 7s aside. In the men's and the Uniball, it's 11 aside. So it does make quite a difference. So we'd have special teams, unfortunately, in the NWFL. Hopefully when we get to 9s, we will, because we all love special teams. There's some slight rule changes. For example, there's no cutting, there's no clipping in 7s. Unless it's on the ball carrier. So it means that I can keep my knees a little bit extra during, normal games. But when I play senior ball or train at GB, I could, in fact, lose a leg. And we play less time. So it's 20-minute halves in the women. So it's a 40-minute game, where obviously it's a bit longer in the men's.
So, and then with that, explain the extra point system to me.
Yeah, so we don't have like kicks or anything. So instead, you can either choose to go from the 5-yard line and play it in from there. So you'll get 2 points for that. Or you can opt for the 2-yard line and then you get 1 point for that. So it is just the kind of difference on it. But I think most teams probably go for 5 yards. You might as well go for 2 points every time.
Okay, keep the questions coming in because I think you'll love this question. Bang! What? Do you? Unbelievable stuff.
It is unheard of that I do, in fact, play for GB because I don't really talk about it all with my stash. But, a little birdie might say I do.
I'm genuinely surprised that you haven't rocked up in a Team GB everything.
You don't want to see what pants I've got on because I do have my joggers on.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I was expecting glasses, give me the hat with the line, the whole
socks.
The whole. So, with the Leeds Chargers, formerly Leeds Carnegie Chargers, Leeds Chargers now. So, were you ever affiliated with any university teams? Because as I've been talking, some of the NWFL teams, they started out being affiliated with university teams, so I find that quite interesting.
Yeah. So when we first started, we was a part of Leeds Beckett. So we was fully kind of involved with them, and they had a few teams that were not just uni teams. I was at uni when I joined, and we had quite a few players that were like uni players, but we got, I want to say dropped, it's probably not the right word, but the uni basically said if we weren't bringing in enough players that were students at Beckett that we kind of couldn't continue, which it makes sense. There's no point in them kind of funding us. But they did us like a divorce deal, pretty good severance package where they would help. We was able to stay there for a few years, obviously until COVID hit. We kind of got our kit and things, and we managed to keep a lot of, well, pretty much all of that. So they really helped us out actually, because they could have been quite harsh about it and just been like, give us our stuff back. So yeah, we was a part of Leeds. I always say Met, but it was Beckett. We trained alongside them for a couple of years, and like the team helped, especially like in the earlier days, they would stay and try and help us understand football, and they would like do run-throughs with us and stuff and pretend to be like other teams. So that was really good. Which is kind of why we still got quite a good relationship with the uni team. So we'll kind of go and support them as much as possible. And especially with some of the older boys that we kind of train with, they'll come watch our games. So that's really nice.
So the one thing that I found surprising, because like, you know, I'll say this now, there's a reason why that I can't do a show on this by myself. That's because realistically, I know nothing. I still know nothing. I know more than I did, but yeah, but yet it's still nothing. So the one thing that surprised me the most about the NWFL is it's not standing the same as senior ball. Like you go somewhere, you play one game, you come home.
Yeah.
So in the NWFL, it's tournaments.
Yeah.
So they go for 2 games, and they play 2.
Yeah.
Like they're only 40 minutes, but that's still amazing. So the tournament format so there's so many questions. Like, is it harder to scheme for? Is it more difficult? Is it more difficult on the body? It's just so strange. It's so complex. I'm sorry that I stop looking in my camera.
No, it's
people.
Yeah, I personally think it's harder. So in Senior Bowl before, we know who we're playing that week, and all of your time is spent around scheming against them. So you know what you're going to come up. But when we've got the tournaments, we've got a scheme against 2 teams. The turnaround time in between the games is like very minimal. So for example, if we're playing Manchester Titans first, we'll kind of play them, and then we've got kind of like 20 minutes until we're heading into the next game. So you've kind of got to like flip your head. And if you've got like specialist plays, or if you're doing things differently, which we all know happens a lot, you've kind of then got to forget everything that you've just done against the Titans and then like jump straight into like your Bears brain and try and like come across that. So it's I want to say double the work, because it's essentially what it is when you are like scheming and playing different teams. So it can be quite hard. I'm not going to pretend it's like the easiest thing, but it makes sense. We've kind of got to do it that way, because I wouldn't want to be traveling up to EKP like 4 or 5 hours for a 40-minute game and kind of nipping back home. That's like a long day out.
So our first question from one of the fellow players that I've written an article on. Right, Moody. Does your personal preparation for an NWFA tournament differ from a full 11s game, e.g. bigger kit bag, different pre-game food?
Pretty decent question. I would say that I probably pack more in the NWFL because I've kind of got that like middle time where I probably will be able to eat. But everything other than that, like physically is still the same. So I won't do separate things, but I would probably end up taking like my playbook, dare I say, my bag might get robbed now, so that I can check on it and just check what I'm doing for our different games. But I'd say kind of like personal preparation for me doesn't change all that much, because you end up playing kind of similar amount of time. The 11s game is more complex. There's kind of like more to do and more to understand and more to learn. Like your reads are quite different. So from a head perspective, the 11s is a bit more difficult, but then with 7s, we've got to do 2 sets.
So I'm just going to go down some more comments before I move on. Got a lovely, I believe that was, I think it's former head coach. There's so many interviews. I don't know all the information, but yes. So people are saying hello, and then I should have asked this one. Bam, Sam Fossey.
Game day sweets, easy. Tang Fastics for me. Just can't stop eating them. I'm a pig. I know everyone's like Skittles. I do eat them, but Tang Fastics all the way.
Yeah, well, that's why it's just wrong, is it? It's always Skittles. Everyone knows that it's Skittles.
But everyone says Skittles because everyone's forced into saying Skittles. You can't.
No one's sponsored by Skittles. It's what you do is you buy the Skittles that are like hot. You don't tell anyone. You go, would you like a handful of Skittles? Buff. Done.
Get the tropical
Done.
one so everyone hates you.
That's it. And before I move on to the next question, we got one more, completely unrelated.
Best pasty to put in a pasty bomb. Great question. For me, controversially so, I might get disowned that from Bolton, is a cheese and onion. But I imagine that a lot of the typical Bolton lads will be saying like anything meat, so like a meat and tater on steak bake.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you understood any of that, because we do not have subtitles here. So there's good questions coming in. Lou Robbins, who was the first interviewee on the NWFL series, which teams from other divisions or the South would you like to play?
So I would love to go up against the Warriors because we've not managed to play them for a good few years now. Incredible team, athletes, every single one of them. They've got great coaching staff as well, and they just have this energy about them. I'm sure you all see it. They're just biggest hype people. So to kind of play them, I might get yelled at, and I'm sure that Yaz and V would be coming for me like there's no tomorrow. But great team, and I think it'd be a really decent game for us. Other than that, I think it'd be quite nice to play someone like the Falcons because they're quite a small team, similar to us, but they pack a punch. Again, great players. They have a great understanding of the game and they gel really well as a team. So I think that, again, could be a pretty decent game for us. I would love to go anywhere kind of like very, very deep south, as we would say, because we've kind of not played a lot of them teams. Everyone refers to us as the deep north, and I'm like, I'm in Leeds.
I've never heard anything in England referred to as the deep south.
The deep south. It's because I'm flipping it round. I'm sick of being called the deep north from Leeds. So yeah. I kind of want new southern teams. That'd be quite interesting. Cardiff again, some great players on there. So I've gone for quite a few teams. Poison.
So we've spoken about other teams in other divisions, but the division Leeds Chargers find themselves in this year is with the Cheshire Bears, the Teesside Steelers, and the Manchester Titans. Yeah. So out of those, because obviously Teesside's new. And then, if you read the article, which you should have done, you can see that there are people players who have gone sort of not back and forth, but they've been going Teesside and then some to Chargers and sort of the other way around. And in the article, you put down Bears as your rival.
Yeah.
But then you've also said that you play Manchester quite a fair bit. Why are Manchester the rivalry, would you say?
We used to have this kind of thing about Manchester being like our biggest rivals, but I don't think it kind of is that way. We play Manchester an awful lot, and I think as two teams that know each other, we probably know each other the most. I don't think there's been a season where we've not played Manchester. And someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we've lost a game to Manchester either. So as far as rivalries go, I think they're a great team. I have a great game against them. They're fun to play against, but I don't think that. Well, I won't call it a rivalry personally, not because we beat them. It's just one of them things like we kind of teams that play each other, where we're kind of fighting to get to number one, and Bears are probably the ones that we've kind of got to win against to get that.
Yeah, especially considering so the Chargers went 3-5 last season.
Yeah.
2 of those were walkover losses. One of those was to the Bears, and then I believe it was a victory over the Bears and then a loss to the Bears. No walkover. Yeah. As Beth said in the article, it's a draw. It's a draw in her head. It's a draw in your head, and that's what matters. So. Just going to go just a few questions. They're a bit, some of them are like halftime food related.
Okay, so chocolate chip cookies are the one. Oat and raisin cookies, they're not a thing. If I wanted to eat healthy, I'd eat healthy. I'm just not having that oat and raisin cookies are a thing. And when I see Lindsay and Moody eating them, it makes me mad. We'll eat them at lunchtime, like during training, and just nibbling away like a bird. Come on.
Wow, I didn't expect that complex of an answer. And then once again, Sam
Fossey is trying to bait me, and I'm not rising to it because I know Fossey too well now. I've like they said, do I agree that I'm the best linebacker in the game? So thank you for that compliment. I think I've got some work to do, but I would say slowly but surely getting there. Just need some of the older ones to retire.
I would say, what number do you think you are right now? Give me the stat line.
I would. I don't know. There's a lot of things that you could kind of base it on. I mean, I'm one of the top ones in the country, so I guess that's good. Team GB and all that. I'm fighting to get a starting spot in the team. But we'll see.
So, in your first tournament this year, which you haven't sort of drawn the privilege that the Prem South and Div 1 North have of playing on the opening weekend, but you're playing Cheshire and Manchester first.
Yeah.
So during that time, are you able to scout for Teesside? And then what is it like sort of going up against the biggest rivals first, and then a team that knows you very well in the Titans second?
I think it'll be interesting. Coming against the Bears, I think it's a great way to kind of like kick off and see where we land and see what we need to do as a team. And I imagine the Bears will be feeling the same. It's going to be quite an interesting one just to kind of see what happens. We've had quite a lot of like coaching staff changes. I don't think the Bears have, so I'm hoping that their playbook is quite similar. But we know a lot of their players and a lot of their skill positions. So we can kind of scout off what we saw last year and the players that we know that are returning. And I'm sure they can do the exact same for us. Titans, again, love to play them. Always a great game of football for us. So I'll enjoy that game, I've got no doubt. And it'll be interesting to see what the Teesside Steelers come out with, because we've not played them for a couple of years now. They've had some like personnel changes. They've got a new head coach as well. So I think there'll be some changes there that we're not expecting. So at least we kind of get to see that. I'm hoping that we'll figure something out and we can have someone that has a look over and see what they're doing. I imagine it'll be quite a lot of run game with their O-line, because they've got some big girls that can run. So I'm hoping that we can see what they're doing. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting, especially to see what the Bears are going to come out with and if they're going to make any changes, because last year it worked for them. So it'll be interesting to see that one.
So obviously last season is not, the leagues haven't, maintained the same teams in. So last year you did play Birmingham, and from the knowledge that I've acquired over, again, quite a short period of time, I'm trying, ladies and gentlemen, Birmingham just seem, there's something wrong. There's something wrong, and Birmingham are just, I don't know what's going on. They're amazing. So for people who are sort of new to sport, last year their point differential was plus 379, which, if you're counting, that is the largest in the entirety of British American football. That is more than the Bullets. And unless someone absolutely spanks it out, this year, but I guess it's not the same season, in senior ball, in uni ball, Birmingham Lions have the largest. Last season, unfortunately, sorry to bring this up, Leeds went 48-0 and then 68-6. What is it like playing Birmingham Lions?
It's a tough game. I think pretty much every person or player or team that come across them can say that. They have elite players in every single position. And even like their second strings and even third strings will probably make first strings in most of the teams. You learn a lot when you play them, because they can exploit almost your playbook. So you learn where you need to improve and kind of where your weaknesses are. So from a playing them point of view, it is good, but it is also difficult. And the girls are so nice, which kind of makes it all that more difficult, because I would love to dislike them, but I just can't do it. Every single one of them are just the nicest of people, which is kind of frustrating. But you learn an awful lot about your team and about your players. So, for example, Gabs, she was our one touchdown scorer against them. Her face coming off that was incredible. She kind of has learned so much just playing Birmingham alone. You know what you've got to do, and it gets you better and ready for the next game. So it's, it can be difficult on the field, but I think as a team you end up gluing together, because you know that you've got to play well and you've got to play your playbook to make sure that they don't exploit your defense anymore. I think our offense learned a lot as well. Like I said, with Gabs, she learned she has to follow them blocks. She's a bit of an athlete, so she tends to just wiggle around holes. But she couldn't do that against them because they knew exactly what she was doing. So she had to make sure she was doing everything by the book. And it did work out. We were really proud. I know it might seem not the biggest deal, but we were really proud that we actually managed to get a touchdown. It was quite a big achievement for us.
Yeah, and anyone who's watching who thinks that isn't a big achievement, look at their scoreline. It's disgusting. It's oh, this is a good question.
So Reggie's in the bedroom because he would spend most this live screaming for attention. And if I didn't play linebacker, what position? So my kind of natural secondary would always end up as running back if I was going to play offense, but I can catch. So I try and get on basically any offensive position that they'll let me. I did offer myself at O-line one year and they laughed, which was quite insulting. But I've kind of played a little bit of everywhere. So I played a bit of tight end at one point, which was a bit random. So I want to say running back. If I was going to play defensively, I'd go D-line. It's just a bit of banter, isn't it? You're just kind of running through holes. You've not got to think about all that much and just like slamming into people. So it's defensively, D-line.
And then, thank you for that, Laura. And then you've got immediate supporters for you at the X. Unbelievable. Not even one, two. Unbelievable.
There was a scandal back in the day when they put me as a receiver, and I probably shouldn't have. So now we do laugh about it. It's fine now. At the time, it was quite a controversial hashtag.
Then we got some more questions. So, Molly Bryson, what are your thoughts on the Women's League going to nines? Hopefully next year.
I would love to see that happen. I think having that extra year, because a few teams had tried this year and 3 agreed, and then obviously 1 had to pull out. So it meant that kind of everyone stuck at 7. So fingers crossed we can kind of get there. I think it'll be a big development for us. So we'll get special teams that will be better reads, and it's a lot more like a full 11s game. I would absolutely love to see it happen. I think it'll be interesting to see by kind of midpoint or end point of this season what the reality of it is, because you do tend to lose players through the season. So kind of smaller teams, like I would say Chargers aren't the biggest team. I know Teesside, they've not got thousands of people, similar to Manchester. It'd be interesting to see if we can kind of field a team. I can't remember what the minimum requirements are, but it is a few people more. So I think it would then require as well for us, some of us potentially to go both ways, which I personally love. But I can understand why I wouldn't necessarily want to put like rookie players or kind of like year 1, year 2 players in that position. It's quite difficult for them, even to like flip your brain from an offensive to a defensive position. That's quite difficult. So I think we can do it. I think there'll be a few teams that will kind of move on up. So yeah, let's try and retain our players and keep recruiting.
And then Lindsay Llewellyn from the Edinburgh Wolves. What's your first playing memory / game moment, or both? Why not?
So this was our very, very, very first year. I briefly remember most of the tournaments, but my kind of main memory is with the last tournament. So we played Derby, and we hadn't come across Derby, and Derby at the time were this like big killer team or what we saw them as. And Dale told us to line up separately. I was a cornerback then because I was skinnier. So I was a cornerback then, and he told me to do an inside shed, and I just did not understand what he was saying. And he was like telling me to press. It was very, very stressful. And I was like, but why am I doing this, Dale? And he was like, just go and do it, please. We have to do this before we're kicking off. So I did it, and it worked. And we was like kind of pressing them on the line, and they kind of couldn't get off. We were losing players like there was no tomorrow. Like Bo had an injury. I think Liv was out. So like a lot of our key players were going down, and Dale's saying, press this person. I'm like, what do you mean? So the kind of confusion of it. But we ended up surprisingly going both ways. So then we ended up on offense, and he was like, run this route. And we didn't know what the route was. So we just made up our own. And our QB was just kind of throwing aimlessly and hoping that one of us would catch it. And we did. So it was a lot of the confusion of it. It was kind of funny. Now think about it, I just think, rookies, like, come on, how don't you know that? But yeah, trying to do an inside coverage and a bit of press on a player that I didn't know what it was.
Well, I mean, if you didn't know what it was, you still managed to pull it off, then there you go.
Like the athletes pull.
It's the classic what the coaches say. No, just go and play Madden. You'll figure it all out. That's always the classic. So Lindsay sort of extrapolated on the last point. The minimum for sevens is 16 players.
Don't know how many it is for nines. Is it? Oh, I can't remember. Because we've got through for 16. That's fine. It's more nines. It's to see if and other teams can kind of go up, isn't it? But yeah, I think everyone must have made their minimum cut off to be entered into the league anyway. So we've all made it, which is nice. But it does obviously jump up when we go to nines.
So with that, I'm going to say throw over to a lovely person from Sport Tank, SJ. Where do you think the women's game can be in 5 years' time?
It's a good question. Where can we be? I think we can be at 11s. I think with the right support, coaching staff retention, and if everything, all the wind blows in our way, I think we can be at an 11s game. I think we're relying on a lot of things to kind of like pull our way to get there, considering we've been at sevens for quite a few years now. So we made the jump from 5 to 7s, I think our first or second year. So we've been at sevens for quite a while. We had a couple of years where we had loads and loads of players, like great amount. We could have made it, but then, people retire, people go to different clubs, and people kind of, especially now, like a lot of clubs are getting promoted into like premierships. That tends to be what happens is, someone might need a bit more in sevens. So that's kind of why we ended up with some of the Teesside girls, because they were at 5s at the time. So they come to a sevens team. So it'll be interesting to see, because I'd love to see us full field and kind of doing what the senior league does and the uni league does. But yeah, we kind of need a bit of support to get there.
So just going to move on to, because some of these questions are better than my questions. I'll stop doing you keep doing my job for me. I don't mind. So Liam Thomas, how has playing D1 senior ball helped you improve as a player? If so, how?
So I've had quite a few comments on this recently, following the last camp that we had for GB. It's helped massively. You had to
get it in there, didn't you?
If it happens, it happens. My understanding of the game has improved massively. At sevens, the reads on the O-line is, there's 3, so there's not that much to read. You tend to just see what's going on in the backfield, to be perfectly honest. I know it's probably not the best thing to say, but it's kind of easier to play it that way sometimes. So things like pulls and stuff aren't as easy to do. So from an 11's point of view, it's helped me massively. I think you can see the females that are in the senior league, you can tell their development. There's a few that I can say straight away, like Vicky Ware, her development after going to senior league's been incredible. She's absolutely smashing things now. She's just out of this world player.
Is she Yorkshire Rams?
No, she's down south, unfortunately.
Well, who she play for?
It's a great question.
Okay.
But she's absolutely nailing it. She won their like biggest hitter of the week for one of the last games. I think it was like last week or the week before, which like is massive. So it helps an awful lot. I think D1 now with the Rams is interesting. Don't want to say we're absolutely smashing it, but we're absolutely smashing it. Sorry.
AAP's just put. It's so strange. I was going to say about Cambridgeshire Cats, because I saw them do. Thank you, AAP. I saw them like post a picture of one of their female players.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm sure that she did get biggest hit of the week. I'd be worried going up against her, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not. And to be fair, last year I very well could have done. I don't know.
Absolutely not. No, she's incredible, and I'm sure she would agree. And a lot of the females that are in the senior league would say that the development and like how much you come on it really does speak for itself. I was always kind of scared going into like senior ball and like impacting essentially the men that I play with. I didn't want for my kind of learn to impact them negatively. I don't think that's happened at all. I want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rams, but I want to say that I'm quite a valued member of the team. I'm on that field as much as I can be, and kind of coming on sometimes second string against some teams. So I think that speaks a lot for itself, and the support from them trying to help the kind of females or rookies in the kind of squad to understand the game is so helpful and incredible. It's helped me an awful lot. I think you can probably see that from a game from Euros to fingers crossed Worlds.
So Stuart Brimble, in all the positions you've played, which one have you enjoyed the most?
So I enjoy Will, so an outside linebacker, because there's not as much kind of pass coverage that you've got to worry about. You're very much just kind of protecting a place. And if they come out into your area, and this is kind of especially for sevens, I just kind of sit on the edge and just wait for them to come to me. And Titans, they would often try reverse and it would never work. And it was just quite fun. Just quite fun because it was very one-on-one and quite like the high pressure. I like to kind of like run out with people and batter them in open field. And that's kind of what happens with Will. With that being said, whilst I am massively undersized, I really do like to play middle linebacker because just protecting a gap, and as soon as that gap opens, you're just in it. And I just think it's fun. It's very aggressive. You've got to kind of be a bit quicker. So it's all the linebacker positions basically.
So it seems you're already getting love from the Rams. Definitely a great part of the week of defense, says Mark Brown, and then definitely the smartest linebacker. So I want to go back up to Alex because this is a vital question. Favorite hype tune for game day?
Okay, so mine is Black Skinhead by Kanye West.
Good answer.
Right.
Good
okay.
answer.
I was a little bit nervous because the Tang Fastics didn't go down so well, so it was a bit of a.
Well, that's because that's wrong. Well, I tell you what. I know he didn't ask me, but mine's "Bad Bad Man" by John Cena. There you go. There you go. There you go. You didn't ask me, but that's your answer.
It was on my list of things to ask.
Oh, good. Well, there you go. There you go. You could put that down. I still love coming in from Wayne Hill. Now, I don't expect anything to come from this question. I just want to highlight the fact that it's been asked because you were going to you asked me. Do you think it's going to be any weird questions? I went, oh yeah, probably. So this is probably the first one. Let's just pretend we didn't see that. But I want to highlight it anyway. So, we're going to keep on talking about the Leeds Chargers season before we move on to talk about Team GB. So, in your final tournament of the season, you have got Teesside and Cheshire, arguably your toughest opponents. How tough is that to play your two toughest opponents at the same time? But then, is there a benefit because you're playing them last? And then, is there an even bigger benefit because it's a home game?
I would say, as far as it goes, I think it's probably worked out well for us. So there's a few reasons why. So home game absolutely helps. You've kind of got a lot more friends and family there to support you, and the hype is kind of what you need on those days when it's going to be a tough day to have kind of friends, family, and more people there. I think we'll have quite large crowds coming, especially with the support from the Yarnbury rugby team, which we do get now. So I think it'll be good. It does also mean that we've got more time to prepare because there's a bit of a gap with World Championships happening in between our kind of like third and fourth. So we'll have more time to prepare. We'll know what we're going to come against. And it works out for them as well. But I think having that time, and we've got quite a lot of smart players and smart coaches, we can plan our game a lot better. It gives us a bit more time where some of the turnaround, same in senior, you might get like a week to kind of like implement new things where we've got more time on that. I think it'll be a hard day, but I think it'll be a good one. It'll be interesting to see kind of where we get up to. Some of the girls might be a little bit tired because especially Teesside and Bears, they've got quite a few players that, fingers crossed, should be travelling to Finland, so they might be a bit tired from that. So it'll be a very interesting day, but home field advantage always helps massively.
So in terms of Team GB, I don't want to move on to it fully. So one thing that I've sort of gathered out of the interviews that I've done is that there's a lot more of a community sense around the sport in general, not just in teams, because, very much so, if you say that you're from another team, your immediate reaction is, that's disgusting, get away from me. But in terms of in the NWFL, it's not like that. So when other players go to play in Team GB, like, what is that like? Is it more of a community setting, or is there like someone that you'll see from, like, I don't know, the Bears, and you're like, I've never liked you. First of all, I've never liked you. All right.
No, I would say it's very much the opposite. I think as soon as we kind of go through and we get into that setting, you don't think about the team that you play for, because you are thinking then Team GB. We're all fighting for position, so it's not like, you know, I'm looking at the Bears thinking, oh, I could clip you now. We're trying to get the best people out there, and we're working together to kind of do that. One of the last things that Coach Chris said to us was, in our kind of after Sunday, we'd finished, we were done with our training sessions. It was like, you know, we are Team GB, but when we're going now to our kind of like games, you support your team and you play the best football that you can do. And remember, we like each other here, but we are then kind of dropping back and going into our kind of like local clubs. You tend to find like people will hang around with their teammates more naturally because they're better friends with them. But this camp, the kind of like people that I typically going to knock around with weren't there, and I didn't feel kind of on my own. I did hang out with a lot of the girls kind of from like Teesside and from the Wolves team. I wouldn't be ever concerned about going on my own because they just take you in. You end up talking to everyone. You like talk to a lot of people, which is kind of why you end up knowing so much about different teams, because you do talk about your club, but it's always in a supportive way and seeing how, you know, how's it going down and what's going down south. Especially talking to London girls is always interesting to see what they're up to, because I kind of don't get to see that so much. But yeah, we definitely forget what club we play for and we just mingle as a group.
So earlier you sort of professed your love to basically hitting someone very hard when playing the ball position. And one of the stories that you told in the article was your best moment playing. And I just want to ask you that again, because I think the story is very, very entertaining. And if you have any questions, keep the questions coming. I love the questions. You're doing my job for me. I don't have to read from my terrible handwriting.
Yeah, so I'd had a couple of years out with injury, had like my ACL, MCL, all that jazz done. So kind of coming back from injury is always difficult, and it was like a massive kind of like deal for me to get back on the field. So we travelled up to EKP. We tend to go up the night before, stay in a hotel. But kind of game day nerves are a thing anyway, but game day nerves kind of post-injury are just like a whole nother level. So travelled up to EKP, and I was like absolutely crapping my pants. I was terrified that'd be awful, that I'd get battered, my knee would break, all types of things. And Fossey, just kind of being Fossey, is kind of psyching me out a little bit, like, oh, what are you going to do? Like, you've got to show me what you can do now. And it helps. At the time, I was like, shut up, please stop. So it was on the field, it was on the first plays, and I just wanted to kind of like get the hit out of the way, and then you kind of like roll into it. I think probably most defensive players would say that. And someone just swung out into my zone, and I just thought, absolutely going to nail them. So just tracked them and blew them up. And I think even when I was on the floor, they was like, good hit. And it just kind of shows, doesn't it, like the support, and like my team were hyping me, like the offense were all like screaming, and just turned around and like Fossey's like very smugly nodding it. It was just nice kind of welcome back into the sport. But they are my favourite kind of players, like tracking a running back, my favourite.
Because I believe the quote that was used was, she was on the floor and she could hardly breathe. And I was like, that is very funny. So a question from Mark Brown: Is there any one coach who helped you improve the most?
Oh, bit of a cop out, but I wouldn't say there is one. I've probably spent most of my time being coached by Christian, so Christian Thompson. So he used to coach at the Chargers and he's now at the Rams. So I've spent a lot of time with Christian in kind of like various formats. So I would say he's probably imparted the most wisdom. Me and Christian have a very love-hate relationship because we can talk to each other very honestly. And I think sometimes that can scare other people because I wouldn't say we're yelling at each other, but we can be very stern. But sometimes it's just the relationship that you've got with a coach. But when it kind of comes to learning, I would say probably Brett Rosenbaum. So how he teaches is quite incredible because he will never actually answer a question. He'll force it out of you, and he'll sit with me and make me go through game film, and he'll play like half a millisecond of a play, and he's like, what's going to happen now? So he kind of makes you think about it, bigger picture, and not just kind of like reading after a couple of seconds. He makes you really try and understand like what an offense is doing and why they're doing it. So couple there, but I'm sure I'm going to get some messages after.
That's how I'm trying to. As a journalist, I'm trying to bait you into it. So, yeah. just before we get on to Team GB, why the Philadelphia Eagles?
So fly Eagles fly. And
that's it for the show, everyone.
So when I was out in America, I stayed out in Philly with one of my friends, Beckett, and her dad was like a massive Phillies fan, and I hadn't kind of got a team back then. I was just roaming around America and hoping for the best. And he basically bought me a jersey and was like, "You are now a Phillies fan." So I didn't really have the option. And then kind of when I come back, it was years and years ago. When I come back, obviously Philly sucked. Like, it is what it is. And then we won the Super Bowl, so that was a great year for us. And then all the other Eagles fans come out the woodworks. I had a jersey that was pretty old at that point, so I could prove that I was an original. But yeah, he kind of just forced it on me, which is very Eagles way to go about things, isn't it?
I think that you've summed up Philadelphia as a whole. Well, yeah. Philly sucked, and then we won a Super Bowl, and then nothing. Perfect summation of the Philadelphia Eagles' entire season over the last since they won the Super Bowl. Unbelievable stuff. So, within your interview, you said that one thing that could be done to aid recruitment and coverage of not just the NWFL, but Brit ball in general, was to sort of not force the NFL's hand, but you're very much right in terms of the NFL when they come over here, they don't mention Brit ball a lot. Mm-mm. And you see the amount of jerseys in the stadium of people who obviously a jersey's an investment. It is like it is and there's obviously a fan base of people who want to watch American football, and this is on when the NFL isn't. So why don't we play in actual stadiums? Not actual stadiums, but why don't we have more fans? So this one's quite a broad one. What do you think we as a community, not just the NWFL, but the community in general, could do to sort of aid the NFL in knowing about us?
I think we kind of do a fair amount at the moment. So I think you'll have people from every single club that actually goes to watch it, and you'll see even uni jerseys, people are wearing them to the games I want to say to get the name out there, but probably because they don't want to spend £100 on an actual jersey. It's quite a lot of money. But we're all there. So it is just trying to figure out how we can kind of use that. So there's a lot of pre-game hype, and there's the screens on, and at Wembley there's a lot of events going on beforehand, not as much at the Spurs Stadium because it is in the middle of a housing estate. But we're kind of all there, so it is trying to figure out how the NFL can showcase us. We've got Phoebes. She does a lot with the NFL now, so she's on the TV shows and talk shows. She does a lot to kind of promote the game, but she is one person. I would like to see kind of more local Brit ball teams getting involved, but we've kind of got to get that invite, or we've got to force their hand into it. So how we do that, I don't know. We might start writing letters to Channel 5 and stuff. Probably not me, but get one of the adults to do it.
Get one of the
adults to do it. And when they're kind of doing pre-game and halftime stuff, if they can just be showcasing different players, we can send them pictures, game film. We can do all this stuff. We just need that opportunity to do that. There's ways that we have the team locator. I imagine a lot of people don't know about that. So if people are interested, or people want to tell friends and family, they can say go on this team locator and you can find out your local team and go down. I would love to see something like that happen, because I imagine that it would be massive for us.
Because the one thing that I remember that they have done is they did do the basically the team locator. Oh, who's your closest team? But that's it.
Yeah. And I don't remember it being the best, because when you think about the amount of teams that are up and down the UK, I think there was about 4 graphics maybe, but it was quite condensed because there's a lot of teams. You can showcase the North on one and the South on one, and kind of look at things like that. But I do remember that graphic, and I think they got some of the details wrong, and there was a bit of annoyance. I massively appreciated that they did that, because they didn't need to. But I'm not sure that one kind of like location thing is enough to help.
So, like Freddie Loach put in, he's a very good point. Like, what's to stop them from showing off a British team at like halftime? You know, like completely agree. Especially considering like we've had a few players from, you know, the UK actually get picked up this year. I think there's 3 that have been picked up this year. You know, and also last year, considering the international combine as well, there were, you know, multiple players from Tamworth, and I forget who else. Probably, I think there was a Bristol Apache. I can't remember. I've got the book somewhere. But so sort of moving on to Team GB. You know, quite just sort of a general question. What's it like representing Great Britain?
It's incredible. It's definitely up there with one of our kind of biggest achievements, if not the biggest at the moment. I think especially like when you're younger, you never think that you're kind of gonna get to that point and getting to that point, and even training, like we have development players. It's amazing to show kind of like the development that we are getting within the sport. And for me personally, I never imagined by any point that I would kind of be what is classed as an elite athlete. So kind of having that under my belt is nice. Has quite a lot of stress that comes with it. So kind of the week before we have like camps or games, I am mega stressed, and I'll kind of go offline a little bit, just to try and like prepare for it, because you want to be the best person, the best player that you can be, and that doesn't always necessarily come naturally. So a lot of training and time goes into it, and kind of need a lot of support from like my friends and my club and my family, which I do luckily get. My work as well, they're like massively a huge supporter of me, and they make quite a few adjustments to allow me to like go to gym on lunch and stuff. So it's amazing, because I am, other than that, I just kind of like work a pretty standard job. So it's not, you know, that I'm some like freak athlete that can like deadlift like 400 kg, just kind of normalish person. So it's a massive kind of achievement for like any player that gets to that point. And that's included with like the men's and the uni teams as well.
So how many autographs have you signed at work?
It's exhausting. It's like takes up most of my day, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
it might only be 20 of us, but it's just day in, day out, just like signed photos and stuff.
I imagine it's just one of those things where you've got one of those people who just move the picture, and then you sign it, they move the, and then
like
it's just
fan me if I get a bit warm. It's pretty good.
That's it. So this year we discussed it off screen. So the first game that you have, the first game you have for GB, he hasn't got his autograph, by the way. Just let you know, it's in the post.
Yeah,
you'll get it now. It's been raised on a public forum. You'll get it now. So you've got Mexico first, and when you told me that, I was like, God, I imagine the Mexico team is probably quite good. And then is it right? They got you out last time. Is that?
Yeah. So in Worlds, when it was Canada, the last World Championships, we did lose to them. I personally wasn't there. I was having an injury. I'm going to say that's why I didn't get through. I wasn't good enough player back then. But yeah, they kind of knocked us out. So they beat us. From all accounts of what I've heard, it was a pretty close game. And the second half, they just kind of pulled through better than we did. So especially like the players that were playing in that world, they've got, you know, access to grind with them, and it's very much now like we know we've got to beat Mexico. That's what we've got to do, and that's kind of the focus on it. Like you said, I imagine they are a pretty decent team. It's like football's big over there, so we've kind of got some pretty tough competition that's coming up.
And then because I will admit the only GB game I've seen is the one that is against Finland. So could you sort of lay out a roadmap for the people watching in terms of the GB women's team and what needs to happen? Who could you face?
So what we have planned is that we'll kind of go in, we'll beat Mexico, absolutely fabulous. So then we kind of guaranteed some type of medal, which is what we're all going there for. So we beat Mexico, and then we face Canada. Fingers crossed, we beat Canada, and then we'll probably be facing the US. So that's kind of 3-2-1 how we're doing it. So you might have seen some of the girls have been hashtagging 3-2-1. So it's exactly that. So that's kind of like what we're planning for. So we're planning for Mexico, then Canada, then the US. So it's going to be 3 incredibly difficult games. But we've got to back ourselves. We're doing everything that we can at the moment to kind of like get there and get through it.
So have you played the US before, like you personally?
No.
No. Oh, okay. That's very interesting because, again, obviously, you see American football and you just go, "Oh, I'm not that. I am not that guy. I'm not that guy." So So one thing you touched on was that what needs to happen to sort of aid the NWFL in general is more coaches. And how do you think that could be easily facilitated or more easily facilitated?
I think it is just trying to get. I wouldn't even just say players. I think a lot of people are involved with like uni teams and senior teams, and it's just trying to get them across to the NWFL and kind of showcase what we are. I think if you're not involved, then I can understand why it might not seem necessarily like the massive, this looks like a great opportunity. But when you're within them teams and you see the development and how much the girls kind of like want to play and want to grow the sport, it's different. It's rare that you find a coach going into the NWFL and kind of coming out of it. We tend to keep the coaches that are involved because it's hard. It's, I want to say, addictive. So to get a lot of our senior players, especially, I've been trying to get as many of the Rams team across to help us out. It's a commitment, and I get that, and especially now we're aligned with the senior teams. It makes it a bit more difficult because it's putting pressure on them to give more of their free time and kind of get away from their real lives and keep playing sport. But we kind of need that help and experience, I think, is the biggest thing. Most teams have only been around for like between like 8 and 4-ish years. So a lot of the teams are very, very young and still finding their feet. We've got a lot of great experience kind of like within our teams, but we just need a bit more help. And I think when we start developing that, I think more people will kind of stick around, and hopefully we'll get more coaches in, we'll get more players, and then that's kind of how we develop into 9s and then 11s.
So I'm just going to put out there, people who are watching, more questions, please. Maybe have I run out of questions? Who knows? No, not yet. So, oh no, I had one and I've forgotten it. Damn. What was it?
I imagine it was something really difficult for me. So
God, what was it? I did genuinely have one. People who are watching, I'm not just unprofessional. No, I've genuinely forgotten it. Unbelievable. Oh God. Think of a question to ask yourself while I try and remember what it was.
That's a rough one.
God, I've genuinely forgotten. Someone help me out. SJ, if you're there. If you're there. But we have got one. Thank you, Lindsay. Favourite Britball player?
Oh, come on. I'm gonna back my own team and I'm gonna go Cowley. Man's just incredible. I'm pretty sure it's like his 9th knee replacement. Every single time he's like, oh, I'm getting a bit old, and then he'll just come back. He's been working out in the gym. He's come back as a linebacker this year. He's just terrifying on the field, and every single time I'm near him, I just think, oh, I won't want to annoy you because he'll absolutely wreck you. So I'm going to say Cowley, but I imagine Fossey's watching, probably Chris Winrow, and they're getting a bit annoyed with me. So I do appreciate you two as well.
Just appreciate, but not number one. Unbelievable. And Mark, I did genuinely have a question, but I genuinely did forget it. I should have written it down. So, Molly Bryson with a good one. What is your advice for someone looking to make the GB squad?
I would say you've got to fully immerse yourself in football. Try and get down to more training, different teams. And I know kind of in the NWFL, you can't just nip across, to Chargers if you play for Teesside. It doesn't quite work like that. But if you even go and watch other teams, you'll learn so much about understanding and reading the game. If it is something that you can do, kind of get in the gym a bit more. Molly, I know that you're always in the gym anyway. But I found since going to the gym, like it's absolutely helped me. But you've just kind of got to fully immerse yourself in it and put kind of everything in the line and work your ass off basically. But for me, it was being around football more. So going watching the uni games before I played senior ball. It was going watching the senior ball games. I was a massive Ram supporter before I kind of joined the team as a player. You've kind of got to understand that, and it'll help your development within the sevens game, and then that'll help your development within the GB team.
And then this is what you're saying regarding your favourite player. Unbelievable stuff. Yeah. Unbelievable stuff. So yeah, but like I think I retire after every single game I play. So it's as per.
I think everyone says it. Like, you tease it a little bit. I think I said it at one point. Here I am, still playing.
Yeah, but it's because I'm waiting for I want Tom Brady coming out of retirement party. Like,
no one's gonna throw that now.
Yeah, I hope they do. I've got my uni old boys game next week, and I'm just not prepared. I'm not trained in American football for months now, and I'm just not. And I've been talking rubbish for about 3 months, saying that they're. So if anyone knows any Lincoln Colonials watching this year, you're all terrible. But this isn't my interview, so.
There's going to be a ref that follows you around almost exclusively, just waiting for targeting.
Oh no! Do it! No, this is it. This is where, again, it's been asked. It's been put out there. If I do get to go back and do my PhD this year, I imagine that I will get targeted, and I don't care, because all the other squads in that division, you're all terrible. You're all awful. Try your hardest. So sort of, it's not. I guess it's a more in-depth question than the first question or the second question I asked. What's the biggest difference between the senior teams and the women's game?
So yeah, on the field it's definitely the reads in senior the plays are more complex because they can be. Where in sevens it is a scaled back version of that. I would say in women's, we probably struggle a lot more for coaches. A conversation that we've had kind of within the Chargers very recently was that I wasn't too sure if I was allowed to say it or not. Was we've kind of got quite a lack of coaches. So the defensive coordinator for the Chargers this year is in fact me, which sounds terrifying, but we're actually pulling it off, dare I say. So my 11s knowledge is still growing massively. My 7 knowledge, I would say that I'm there, but I would say that's probably the biggest thing is we have a lot more coaching support within the 11s game. So the support staff at the Rams is massive. We've got a lot of coaches. We've got people that do film for us. We've got people that help with our stats. Where at Chargers we've got Spencer Wybrow and me and Kaylee who are helping. So that makes a massive difference when you think about it, because me and Kaylee are still players. I think any team that we're playing who knows me knows what I like on the field. So I might have been just giving them a bit of a helping hand there, unfortunately. But I would say it's the difference between what you can do in 11s is crazy. So when stuff happens in 11s, I'm like, what on earth is happening here? And I'm just running and hoping that I'm doing my job. Where in 7s, I'm pretty confident with kind of the amount of things that can happen is quite scaled back.
So then, as you just said, so you're sort of acting DC at the minute.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say? So what are the sort of the challenges that arise from that and being a player coach?
I thought it was going to be a lot worse than it was. When me and Spencer had that conversation, Spencer had never kind of written a defensive playbook before. I certainly hadn't. So kind of me and Spencer had to get together and just do it. We did it. It was fine. But now it's more the difficulties of playing on the field whilst trying to implement the playbook to see what's going wrong. I think that's probably my personal biggest issue. So it's a lot of time now. I like to play quite fast and loose, and usually I've got a safety to mop up anything that I might kind of miss. But now I have to kind of have that, I say, responsibility. So my personal way of playing is quite different. On game days, I'm not a big talker. I tend to go quite quiet, and everyone's a bit freaked out by it because I'm very silent and it's not like me. But now, because I'm kind of DC, I know that I'll have to change that to support my defense. With that being said, the girls have been incredible. Like, I couldn't have asked for it. I don't think I would have wished for it to happen, but I've had like incredible support from the players and from Spencer as well. It's difficult for him, you know. We've kind of touched on it. He doesn't massively want to be the head coach. He wants to be like, you know, bit of a fun OC. So he's kind of in a position where he doesn't necessarily want to be, and he's supporting me. But it's working out, and we've kind of got very in-depth training plans, so we know what we're doing, and we're kind of pulling it together. And I think it's going pretty well. I mean, I'm going to hope that it pans out that way with our first tournament. We've got our inter-team scrimmage on Saturday, so we are kind of playing within ourselves. So that'll be interesting, because I'll just be giving Spencer dirty looks all day, along with the offense. But it definitely has its challenges. I've got to put a lot more time into it than I have kind of expected this year, especially with Worlds coming up. But you've kind of got to do what you've got to do for your club, and it's just a part of it, unfortunately.
But then would it be fair to say that you understand the game better looking at it from a coach's perspective more so than a player's perspective?
Oh, absolutely. So when you know, for example, we've had previous player books and Christian said, oh, you should do this. And I've been like, oh, I will do what I want and do something else. Now when a player does that, I'm like, stop it. Like, I have to very much go into coaches, and I do have to think about it bigger picture. And now I'm trying to figure out what other teams are doing. I think this is kind of like where my potential and experience is coming down, and Spencer's supporting me a lot more, because I've got to think about other teams and what they're doing, as opposed to kind of like doing it through the training sessions. I think we're lucky that I've played sevens for kind of the amount of time that I have. And again, I wouldn't be able to do it on 11s field. There's not a chance that I could do that. But sevens, because it is a little bit scaled back, it makes it, dare I say, a little bit more manageable. But yeah, it's I'm trying to make sure that the players are doing what they say. And I think because they know the kind of stress that it could cause me, I will say that they have mostly behaved, but we'll see when it comes to game day if it actually pans out that way.
So obviously, like, sort of sticking on that, so as a DC, how do you expect us to, you know, influence and sort of instill the data in your team during the, you know, break between game 1 and game 2 of a tournament?
So I've not massively thought about this. I was thinking I should probably start trying to do that. In my head, what we're going to do is I'm going to kind of like let them have their time, and then I'm going to try and get almost like a bit of a walkthrough going, just so that we can have that mindset change, because I, as a player, understand how difficult it can be. And I think because a lot of our coaches tend to be senior ball, they've not experienced that before. And I think sometimes it can be forgotten how difficult it is to actually like make that switch and be like, right, now I'm playing a completely different team that does something completely different. So I want to get some type of walkthrough, but I think it's also important that we get that time to kind of like chill and kind of have a bit of a laugh with each other, because that's kind of why we're all there. It's a hobby at the end of the day, and I want the players and myself to kind of enjoy being there. So I've kind of got to gauge it, but I think it is just saying like, this is what we're doing, like, you know, Bears cap off, Titans cap on, like this is what we've got to do against them.
So I think with that, we're sort of gonna, you know, sort of run it down a bit. So when are the GB Worlds? When are they?
So we should fly out 28th of July, and then we'll be back the 8th of August. We should be having coverage whilst we're there. So we will be able to kind of like log on. Don't know how much players will be able to be on the phones, because you get no time really. You get like a little bit of time here and there, but I won't be able to speak to anyone. I think my head will be fully GB mode.
And then I guess that is sort of it. So I think I sort of said it in the article, like sort of closing remarks. How is the season going to go for the Leeds Chargers, and anything else?
I think we're going to have a good season. Looking forward to kind of being back on the field and having kind of like normal Premiership, as opposed to our kind of geographical, our kind of like more local games. It'll be interesting to play, especially Teesside Steelers. So I think just try and get down and support your teams as much as you can. If you've got any local games that are going on, and you know you play senior ball, you play uni, or you just kind of appreciate the sport, try and get there and support them. If you can get involved with any of the local clubs, even as a guest coach on occasion, people massively appreciate that, and just try and share what you can and support your local and your national teams.
So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to sign off, but not before, I'm going to run down what games are happening this weekend for the kickoff of the NWFL season. So May 7th, obviously, is the Prem South in the tournament hosted by the London Warriors at the University of Greenwich. So if you're nearby, go down. You get to see 2 games. Why wouldn't you? So you've got the Kent Exiles versus the Hertfordshire Cheetahs, the London Warriors versus the Birmingham Lions. Do you see that, ladies and gentlemen? You should be excited for that game because London Warriors are really good. Birmingham are really, really good. And on the first day and the first tournament of the season, they're going head-to-head in both of their first game of the season. But that will then be followed up by the London Warriors versus the Hertfordshire Cheetahs and the Birmingham Lions versus the Kent Exiles. And that's in the Prem South. Now, in Division 1 North, hosted by the debuting Northumberland Shield Maidens. You're going to have the Shield Maidens versus the Wolves, the East Kilbride Pirates versus the Wolves, and then the Northumberland Shield Maidens versus the East Kilbride Pirates. I keep saying Northumbria. And then, just because it's 2 weeks away. On the 21st of May, obviously, you've got the second weekend with a lot more games in the Prem North, where the Leeds Chargers reside. In the tournament, it will be hosted by the Manchester Titans. You'll have the Cheshire Bears and the Leeds Chargers, the Manchester Titans versus the Teesside Steelers, the Titans versus the Chargers, the Steelers versus the Bears. That's it for the Prem North, and the Prem South going back at it with the hosted by the Birmingham Lions. Birmingham Lions versus Wembley Stallions, who had their bye because in the Prem South, because there's 5 teams, one team does get a bye a week. So it'll be the Stallions making their 2022 season debut versus then the Kent Exiles versus the Warriors, the Lions versus the Exiles, and then the Warriors versus the Stallions in the Div 1 North. Hosted by Edinburgh Wolves this time. You've got the Wolves versus the Shield Maidens, the Pirates versus the Shield Maidens, and the Pirates versus the Wolves. And then the Div 1 Central, again, sort of making their debut in the second week, hosted by Sandwell Steelers. You've got Norwich Devils, who are on their second season, versus the Leicester Falcons, the Steelers versus the Peterborough Royals, then the Royals versus the Devils, and the Steelers versus the Falcons. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be having coverage of it now. So expect to see scores, expect to see games, what games are happening, being posted, and then also it might seem like the NWFL interview series is going to come to an end because the season starts. You're wrong. There's more. There's not one tomorrow. There'll be some content tomorrow, but it won't be an interview. But we will have some more next week. I believe we have Molly Bryson, who was asking questions earlier, along with Tanya from the Peterborough Royals, and then Jen from the Northumbria Shield Maidens. And also, hopefully, I think I've got like a fair few people from Norwich Devils on an interview. And so I'll tell you what, transcribing an interview of one person's difficult, and I've got to do it with apparently 4 now. I sent you the transcript, so that was interesting. But yes, so there'll be more NWFL coverage for the rest of the season. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much for watching. Thank you very much, Beth, for joining us. Hopefully you've been informed. Hopefully, all the questions that you've had got answered. Whether or not Beth can still put her fist in her mouth is a question that will remain unanswered. will remain unanswered. But with that, the Leeds Chargers, hopefully they do well. Hopefully everyone does well. Enjoy the NWFL. And then if Beth wants to say goodbye, and we just got and you know what? They are right. I need to before I do anything, before I say throw to Beth to say goodbye. Big shout out to Girls of Gridiron UK. All the NWFL coverage that I have done so far couldn't have been done without their help. They've been fantastic. They've sort of facilitated all of these interviews for me. Their content is exceptional. I fully intend to showcase it more. Hopefully work with them. We're on some things, but genuinely follow Girls of Gridiron UK on Instagram, TikTok, and then I think it's just Girls of Gridiron UK with no spaces on Facebook. Definitely follow them, and getting love in the chat from Rachel and the entire Edinburgh Wolves. So I'll let you say goodbye.
Yeah, well, thank you for having us. Like I said, it helps us massively as a sport and as an individual team as well. So I appreciate it. If you've got any other questions, still happy to answer them. Just slide on in my inboxes. You can find me. I'm pretty easy to find. And yeah, thank you. Massive shout out as well to Girls of Gridiron, because doing the work that other people don't want to do, and we appreciate it.
Cool. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Tune in on Sunday for the rundown, or not the rundown, Game Day Live. Hopefully we'll get some NWFL scores on there. But even still, on hopefully Sunday morning, if we can get all the scores in, the scores will be going up. And with that, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you very much, Beth. Bye.